Hello, I'm Andrew, and I'm one of the tutors for the Ensemble Reza Community Orchestra. This is a little video just to help you, those of you who used to play and have an old instrument stashed away and you're getting it out and you're wondering whether it's playable and what to do, how to get back into playing. Okay, so first things first, let's look at the violin in terms of getting it playable again. Now, there's one really important thing you need to check before you do anything else. And I would always advise, if you possibly can, get your violin looked at by someone that knows what they're doing. But if it kind of all looks all right and it's basically there, you might be able to get it sorted yourself. The really critical thing is something called the sound post. Now, the sound post is a little tiny bit of doweling, wooden doweling, that sits between the front and the back of the violin. It has two functions. One is to transfer the vibrations of the music from the front of the violin to the back. Helps with the sound, hence the name. But also it has a really important function with the structural integrity of the violin. So what it does is it pushes against the pressure, the downward force, that the tension on the strings, it tends to push the bridge downwards. And if this sound post inside the violin isn't there, then that can push the whole front of the violin in. So it's really important that we check that. Okay, so how to find it? So if you look at your violin like this, we're looking at the right hand side of the bridge, the edge here. And you'll see, if you look through the F hole, you might need a little torch or something, but generally if you've just got a reasonable daylight, if you look in there, you can just see a little post. It's usually just behind the bridge and roughly level with the right hand foot of the bridge. If there's a post in there and it looks like it's pretty much upright, we're fine. If, two things, if you give the violin a little shake and it sounds like there's a substantial little bit of wood rattling around, don't touch it, don't do anything with it, take it to someone, an expert. They need a special tool called sound post setters, which even I don't have, and then they can put it back up. But do not tune the violin up if there isn't a sound post in place. Okay, so that's the one kind of slightly dodgy thing that you could cause some damage. Other than that, we're kind of okay. So the next important thing is the bridge. Okay, so the bridge of the violin is the bit that holds up the strings away from the fingerboard. It should be roughly straight up. You'll notice that mine, if anything, just angles back slightly. That's to kind of just to counter the forward pull of the strings as you tune them up. I tend to have mine very slightly leaning back, but it's a fraction of a degree. It's basically upright. And then the other thing it needs to be is central. Okay, and the way to check that is to look at your strings and look at the gap between the G string and the edge of the fingerboard and the E string and the other edge of the fingerboard. They should be roughly equal, or almost exactly equal. Yeah? So that would then mean that the bridge is central. If you notice that like one string's right on the edge of the fingerboard and the other one has a massive gap, you just need to move the bridge across a little bit. So the way to do that is to kind of take your fingers like little pincers, put one either side. This is difficult to demonstrate here because it's a bit low down, but kind of that, and just very gently move it to the side. The bridge isn't glued at all, it's just held on by the tension of the strings. So it's best to do that when the strings are a bit lower than their normal pitch, so kind of about a third lower, so your A string would be about an F, something like that. But obviously, if you're at all worried about it, and it is quite an art moving bridge around, so I would basically, if it looks upright and it looks fairly central, go ahead. But if it isn't, probably best to get someone to look at it. Tuning is always a big issue in the violin. Basically the design of the violin hasn't fundamentally changed in 500 or 600 years. and it's very primitive technology. It works well if you've got really good quality pegs and they're perfectly fitted and the holes are all perfectly round and smooth. If there's any kind of like ridges or whatever on the pegs, they can be very troublesome, so good luck. But let's assume that they're in reasonable condition. I would recommend, if you've got the fine adjusters. Now, most violinists only have one. I have two, because I find that in concert the A string tends to kind of go a little bit flat every now and again. So I like to be able to just really quickly just tune up the A string a tiny bit if I need to. And using the peg, it's fraught with danger because the peg can then slip and then it pushes the other pegs out. Whereas this, you can do quickly. A lot of modern violins will have four, or they'll have a built-in tailpiece with four adjusters. I think that's great. They will go up and down about a tone, some a tone and a half, but there's not a great deal of play. So you have to get it almost there with these. When a violin's not being used for ages, the strings will be low, they will be well down. I would look at tuning them up gradually. So get to about a tone below. So tune the G to an F, tune the D to a C, sorry, I had to think about that, and the A to a G and the E to a D. Just get it somewhere near, and then get it slightly closer with the peg, sort of within a semitone. And then if you have got the adjusters, use those to get the final thing. It's a twisting and pushing in motion. Go down first and sort of like unscrew it. So sort of it's if you're looking at the peg, it's actually clockwise on that side, and it's anti-clockwise on that side to make it lower. So it's kind of obvious. It's just a pure mechanical thing. So you'll see that the string runs along the top of the peg. So obviously, if you want it to go higher, then you make the end of where the hole is go further away. It's kind of obvious if you look at it. It's probably a good idea if you haven't got a piano or anything at home to tune to. I have an old metronome which has this ghastly A. It's really horrible, but it does the job. And then because I've been playing for so many years, I can just tune bits straight without having to refer to the other strings. But you know, if you're not used to doing that, then you need to hear all four notes. Or you get one of these clip-on tuners. My advice for those is don't buy an expensive one. I know that sounds crazy, but the simpler it is, the better. You want one that's just like really simple to operate. You clip it on, you plug the string, and it will tell you whether it's what note it is roughly, and whether it's below or above, usually with some sort of like a dial thing or whatever, or colours. Sometimes it's like green for in tune, red either side. They work in different ways, but they are very good, and you know that will do you if you haven't got piano to tune. So now, let's hope that we've got the violin working and in tune. The other thing is how do we get going again after years of not playing? I would just really go simple route. Play some open strings with the bow, try and get the bow flowing and try and get it running straight. So practice into a mirror. This is quite good because I've got a camera here. I can see myself. So very difficult to get that bow running straight because obviously we're not straight lines, and you have to kind of just push your hand away slightly as you get towards the end of the bow to get it running straight. But it's good to practice that. And then finger-wise, simple scales are the best. Start with a 1-octave D scale. So. And when you get to that D at the top with the third finger on the A string, just kind of fine-tune it with the open D. So if you're not sure, sometimes it can be very hard to tell whether the note is slightly under or slightly over. If it's miles out, it's easy, but if it's really close, the trick is to listen to the quality of the sound. So if it sounds a bit sad, like this, oh, I'm feeling a bit sad, that's under, yeah? So you just push your finger up a little bit. Should sound basically like one note. So I'm playing the D string, the open D, and the third finger on the A string. If it sounds a bit sort of jangly and brash, then it's too high. Yeah, so it's quite hard to tell, but listen to the quality of the sound. So if it feels and sounds a bit sad, then it's gonna be too low. If it feels bright and jangly, it's too high. Okay, so you can do that on all the strings. So obviously you can't do a 1-octave scale on the E string because we run out of strings. But you know, you can do an A 1-octave on a G 1-octave scale, just to practice that. And it's just kind of more getting the fingers moving, I think. Also, I quite often use a trills to practice getting my fingers moving, and you start kind of slowly and kind of. And then maybe a bit quicker, you know. 4th finger, always tricky, yeah. That's the one that's going to be the hardest to get going again after a long time. But to be honest, you won't be needing 4th finger very much if you're joining and playing the easiest of our parts. We try and keep those as simple as we can, kind of around about grade 1 level, but sometimes they're a little bit more tricky. Good. Well, I hope to see some of you once we're back to normal life and we can have proper rehearsals again in person. But do join us. Have a go at the online thing. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. We're doing some fun stuff. So good luck. But I would stress again, if you possibly can, if you haven't touched your violin for years, I would take it into a music shop. Get someone to have a look at it and knows what they're doing. There are pitfalls, but you know, as long as you've got soundpost in there, you won't go too far wrong. All right. Good luck, and hopefully see you soon.